You remember when that actor on Drake and Josh committed murder? No, not this actor. Actually, this actor. Now, the guy's name is Johnny, and Johnny is 28 when all this starts, and he's living in Los Angeles. And Johnny, he's been acting for a long time. You've probably seen him in stuff. Like I said, he was in an episode of Drake and Josh. He was on Malcolm in the Middle. He was in an episode of Criminal Minds. He was on the OC, but he's probably best known for playing Halfsack on the show Sons of Anarchy. And in my opinion, he's really good in that role. So yeah, you get it. He's been acting for a long time with a lot of success. But one night in 2011, all that is thrown into jeopardy because Johnny is out riding his motorcycle on the highway, but in a remote desert area, when suddenly he loses control and kaboom, he crashes. And poor Johnny, he gets taken to the hospital and he has a major head injury. Luckily, he doesn't seem to have a concussion, so eventually they clear him to leave and he leaves the hospital. But here's the thing, from that point on, Johnny's dad starts noticing that Johnny, he's acting kind of weird, like he's acting erratic and unpredictable. He also becomes super sensitive to light for some reason, and his friends have also been noticing that he's acting weird. Like sometimes he randomly starts speaking in a British accent and he doesn't realize he's doing it. So dad gets worried and he schedules him to get an MRI, but Johnny doesn't want to get an MRI. He swears nothing is wrong with him. So because he's not listening to the people around him, things keep getting worse. Like one day in 2012, he's visiting his parents' condo and he decides to go for a walk outside. And while he's walking, he thinks he hears cries of distress coming from inside a neighboring condo. Now, we don't know if he actually heard someone crying out or if he was just hearing things in his head. Either way, he breaks into the unit to check it out, but no one is there. Then, instead of leaving, Johnny just stays. And eventually 2 men show up because you know they live there, and they're like, "What the fuck, bro? You need to leave." But Johnny's like, "Nah." And pow pow, he hits the both of them with a broken bottle, and a fight breaks out. And after they punch him in the head 17 times, they eventually are able to pin him down and call the police. And so, bam, Johnny gets arrested. Here's his mugshot, and while he's in jail for this incident, he starts acting even crazier, like he's smashing his own head against a concrete wall. He tries to jump off a second-story part of the jail, and I guess he also tries to unalive himself, so they transfer him to a psychiatric hospital. Later, he gets out of that hospital, and unfortunately, things don't get better. He tries to unalive himself again. He also tampers with his parents' circuit breaker, because the lights, I guess they're bothering him, because remember, he's now sensitive to lights, and he doesn't stop there. Around a month later, Johnny walks up to some random guy outside a yogurt shop, and kapow, he sucker punches the dude without even being provoked, like for no reason. And so bam, he gets arrested again. And I guess he gets out after that, because a few days later he walks into the ocean fully clothed and he has to be hospitalized for hypothermia. Then he tries to break into some random woman's apartment in Santa Monica. And so bam, he gets arrested yet again. Here's another mugshot, and so you can see the dude is having a full-on meltdown, like he needs help. In fact, he pretty much has to step away from acting because of all the legal trouble he keeps getting into. Now, eventually he gets a jail sentence over one of his past incidents, so he has to go and serve out this sentence in the county jail. However, he's not there long before he gets transferred to a mental health facility again, where he can get, you know, proper treatment. And at the facility, the doctors finally diagnose him and they prescribe him medications for bipolar disorder and psychosis. But unfortunately, he refuses to take those medications. Like when they give them to him, he just hides them in his cheeks and then he will spit them out later. So ultimately, he doesn't get better, and several months go by and he's now back in court again defending himself because I guess he decided he doesn't need a lawyer and he's just gonna defend himself in court. And so he gets sentenced to another 144 days in county jail because he had already served some of his time. So he goes to jail, but it turns out that the county jail is actually overcrowded and Johnny only ends up serving about 44 days total before they let him out. And that's crazy that they let him out. But to be fair, after he's out, it seems like Johnny finally wants to make a change. Like he finally realizes that he needs to work on turning things around for himself, or he's just gonna keep going back to jail over and over again. But instead of getting mental health treatment and going on some kind of medication, like I would hope someone in his position would do, he decides to jump back into his career and back into being creative. So he goes to his dad and he asks him to arrange a stay with this woman, Catherine. And Catherine, she she is this nice older woman who's known around Hollywood for running what's called the Writer's Villa, which is sort of a bed and breakfast where artists and writers will rent a room and they'll live there with other artists and they can all, be creative. So Johnny goes to live there, and I guess he's lived there before, and Catherine is actually happy to have him back. And Johnny, he's glad to be back there. I mean, this is gonna be good for him and his recovery, and maybe now this will be the end of his turbulent behavior, and he can finally start getting his life back together. Until it all falls apart. Remember how Johnny feels like he's sensitive to lights, and he has this habit of tampering with the circuit breakers? Well, one night I guess he feels like the lights at the Writer's Villa are just too much for him, and allegedly he takes the liberty of messing with the circuit breaker and cutting off the lights for the whole villa. And according to Catherine's friends, she finds out it was him and she gets all pissed off, and she allegedly lets him know that that wasn't cool. And so now Johnny's all pissed off too. The next day, I guess he suddenly just snaps and he goes to Catherine's room and he confronts her. And at some point during that confrontation, pow, he starts punching her. Then he grabs her and he starts strangling her, and this unfortunately kills her. And if that isn't bad enough, then he goes and he unalives her poor cat. Oh, and he's still not done. Then he goes outside and he picks a fight with this house painter who's doing some work on a neighbor's deck. And I guess Johnny starts arguing with that guy, and then he starts beating him. Then a neighbor tries to step in, and Johnny starts beating that neighbor. But that neighbor, even though he's in his 70s, he ain't no punk. He fights back and he punches Johnny, and he somehow ends up hitting him with a chair. And while Johnny's stunned, that neighbor and the painter both run away and into his house, where they shut the door behind them. And pretty quickly, Johnny is there trying to force his way through that door, but he can't get through. Meanwhile, one of them calls the police while Johnny tries to flee and get away. And he runs and he jumps a couple of fences and he ends up back at the Writer's Villa. And from there, he climbs up to the upper patio or roof part. And here, it isn't actually clear what happened. He either jumped off the roof or he fell. Either way, he landed on the ground and he hit his head and he died instantly.